Hello, I'm Izzy Wells and welcome to Uncovered, where we look at the creative scene in Taiwan. Now, on the 15th of October, earlier this month, I had the privilege of attending the last day of Taiwan's World Music Festival. Musicians from both Taiwan and around the world gathered in Taipei to perform, and it was a wonderful experience. One of the acts performing this year was Ukrainian-Canadian band Balaklava Blues. They mixed traditional folk song with electronic music to create a uniquely Ukrainian sound of resistance. Have a listen to their song Solo from their performance.
We're gonna get y'all moving right now. This is the time to get up and dance. Here we go! Yeah!
Their performance was incredibly moving and powerful, and it's actually one of the best live performances I've ever been to. So I felt very lucky that I had the opportunity to speak with them about their story and their music. Hello, we're at the World Music Taiwan Festival, and I'm here with Balaklava Blues. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Nice to meet you, and thanks for talking to us.
So first of all, where does the name come from, Balaklava Blues? Tell me about that.
Balaclava Blues, it comes from, a lot of people don't know that there's a town called Balaklava in Crimea, in southern Ukraine, part that's now occupied by Russian forces. And back during the Crimean War, still in the end of the 19th century, the British soldiers came down, also still fighting off Russians, and so there's a long history of that. And they saw the local militia that wore these face masks to protect against the cold, moist air that was coming off of the Black Sea, and they didn't know what it was called, so they just called them balaclavas, these masks, and that name survived, for now over a century. And has become a part of like pop culture. Essentially, there's, it's a part of obviously like motorcycle and ski and snowboard culture, but also it's huge in hip hop and EDM circles and all over the place. And then of course it's a symbol of protest and revolution. And that's sort of the first place that I really encountered balaclavas in my life was during the revolution in Ukraine in 2014.
Yeah, but for us, name balaclava, it's pretty metaphoric as well, because when we saw people went through the war and revolution and were in these balaclavas, and this is pretty much civilian people who decide to defend our land and our people, you can see the eyes through this balaclava, through this like holes, and for me it's what you can't hide. So balaclava kind of for not being recognizable, not only for purposes like to hide from the cold and wind, and like our philosophy is about this eye that they can't hide anything. So like all your emotional world, all your experience, all your life, you can see through your eyes, that you can't hide it.
I'm sure you've heard the expression, the eyes are the windows to the soul. And if you think about it, then in a way, even though a balaclava is meant to hide you, it really just takes away all of everything else by which we sort of learn about a person, and it just gives you the window directly into the soul.
Yeah.
And so, we wanted to give a soul into the blues of the Ukrainian plains, and the blues that we've been living for hundreds of years. And the folk music, the traditional music, especially the traditional polyphony of Central and Eastern Ukraine is really what inspires It's at the root of sort of all of our music and all of our compositions, and that's the blues. It's the Ukrainian blues.
That's beautiful. I really love that meaning behind it. And then again, we're talking about like protest and resistance. And you said how a lot of that is rooted in your music. How did you guys come about? And was that always something that you were trying to do, like music of protest and such?
Like we're kind of hiding behind this, like all electronics sound, you know. But we also telling the stories, like first of all through their lyrics of this traditional 1,000-years-old folk songs that telling the story also of people who live through different difficulties and stress and trauma, and now people in Ukraine kind of live in go into the same circle in the history and living through the same thing. So we kind of try, like in our music, with like hiding behind, but we're showing these stories through our personal experience as a Ukrainians who like was in the revolution and in the war, and now like my brothers fight, and so we're telling all the story between the songs. This is our eyes, kind of.
It's just an extension. The project is an extension of our personal lives. That's just a small little mirror into what the Ukrainian experience is. You know, like Marichka and I, we met during the protests in 2014. And as we tell people every single show, our first dates were literally on burning barricades, singing requiems for the first boys who were shot and killed at the hands of corrupt riot cops. That's the backdrop of our personal experience. And as musicians, it was then, the step wasn't even a conscious one. It's just naturally everything that we started to do and create started to express that experience. And that was just the beginning. All of a sudden, revolution, it turned into annexation turned into proxy war turned into stale war turned in full-scale invasion. And this has been going on for the better part of the last decade. And throughout that decade, we're trying to express to people what's going on, and also trying to understand within ourselves what's going on in our own personal relationships and our own family. And it's how do we navigate this world of living in war that we never ever thought that we would be in, and how do we open that up to people so that they can either find it useful or expressive or even just to build empathy. So the project, you're asking where did it come from or where did it start? I mean, it starts from personal experience, and that rubbing against our love of like traditional folk music. Like that's really, we both have different ways of coming through it or coming to it, and in my case, it's something that founded my love of music in general. And so it's always been a lens through which I see the world.
Yeah, I'm interested in like folk music. What is it specifically about folk music that lets you kind of do your thing?
It came to my life pretty unexpectedly, because it wasn't exist in my life before. I grew up in like a big megapolis and like big city Kiev, and I don't have any family members like living in a village, because this tradition like Kievs used to live and formed in the villages. So I never hear it, which also very, very questionable. Why? Because I'm like, as a Ukrainian, never hear this song. And the first time I heard that, it was through like a friend of my teacher who came to my school and like, bring old recordings she did in the villages. And it's blown my mind, because I never even expected that our tradition sounds like that. It wasn't in the radio, it wasn't in the TV. So I don't know, 30 years ago exactly, it was like that, and I fell in love immediately. And now this is my main thing that I learned, and I am keeping it. I am sharing this tradition, and I feel like a kind of like part of a, I don't know, small, small tribe.
Secret society.
Secret society, because not lots of people. Like if you imagine Ukraine, and you come into Ukraine and you hear this tradition, no, this is the thing was killed by Russians for many, many, many years, very successfully. And now it's a dead tradition. You will not find it in the villages. So that such a small amount of people know that, I can care that. So I feel like a very, very, I feel special and very, very responsible to be able to know that and to share it around the world.
But that being said, especially since the beginning of the war, there's been a revival and an interest in traditional folk music. And the reason, I think it's a similar experience that everyone in the country is having. That's what Marichka went through like decades ago, and what I went through, over 15 or like almost 20 years ago. It's that same feeling of, even if you've never experienced it until that point, you hear it and it feels primal and naked and honest and real, and something that's connected to your roots, that roots you in the earth, that's connected to something way bigger than you or your family or your generations. It's something way larger, and the power of that's coming through the earth into your soul and out through your mouth and into other people's ears and back into the ground. And that whole process, I'm getting philosophical about it, but it's so empowering, especially when your land is being taken away from you. And all of a sudden it starts to speak to you in a way that it didn't before. So we're finding that's something that people are relating to, both in Ukraine and then outside of Ukraine, because they're curious, what is it? What's actually going on? And it's really hard to get a straight story from the news. There's so many different sources, different ways of putting things, and often it's very dry facts. What happened today, why it happened, and geopolitical structures and all these complicated ideas. But when you listen to a song, you just feel it. You feel something, you feel some truth that nobody is telling you what it means. They're just saying, here it is, and your interpretation is what it is. And, that's something that we really value, and we've decided to work on and nurture and grow. And as a result, we've had the opportunity to travel the world to share what that has grown. And that's why we're here in Taiwan.
And on that, we are in Taiwan, and I think a lot of people do like to draw similarities between Taiwan and Ukraine, but also when you're talking about that kind of erasure of culture and history, Taiwan's also had that with in language as well. Do you think there's something about your music that resonates especially with Taiwanese people?
We'll see. I think we can see and feel it right after our performance, but I can tell you right away, I think a lot of musicians in the festival, they caring so much about their traditions. And this is a main thing, that if you lose it, like if it's killed, you don't exist in this world as a nation. And this is a main thing that we should care about. And I can see that people very, very care, like how they learn in tradition, how they playing the instruments, how they care about that. There's a similarity between our people and the people of Taiwan.
What's really amazing about this festival is that, you have a lot of Taiwanese artists alongside the international artists. And so it's very easy as an outsider to make the comparison. And you can see that all the Taiwanese artists that are being presented have some connection to their traditions. That's not the case in a lot of countries. There's not, a lot of countries, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to sort of chase modern trends and to be interested in evolution and development and all these different things that, the world and connection with other places and the internet grants us access to. But you definitely feel in different places where tradition is important, and this is a place where it's important. So for that reason, I think that people will really relate to our music because you can feel it in every single note. You know, we're playing very, contemporary, let's call it, for lack of a better word, music, but you hear the tradition from the first note. You hear that it's something that's from a very specific place that can only be Ukraine.
And you know what we find? We met a local musician here that present like her tribe tradition. I think it's called Taiwan, and it sounds exactly like Ukrainian music. And I can tell it about the music of indigenous people of Canada and US that it sounds the same, like this open voice. If you don't hear the language, you can tell from like which part of their globe the songs came from, because it came from the earth, it came from the spirits, it's connected with the spirits, and it's why it sounds the same. Sometimes people say, "Oh, this is original music you guys think." No, this is Ukrainian, but it's literally I can hear it from this musician, particularly from like Taiwanese people who present in tradition. That is exactly like our tradition sounds like. So it's what I'm thinking, that probably thousands of years ago, music was sounds in a planet. It was similar.
There's another side of it too. There's the political side. I think even among Ukrainian musicians, like one thing, every musician in band has their like strengths and weaknesses, right? And for us, one of our strengths that has been recognized by our peers has been our ability to express what's happening in a way that invites people in instead of turns them away. Even among Ukrainian musicians, and one of the reasons is, like I said, that we started right at the revolution. There's not a lot of musicians still, even after the revolution, we're like, no, we just want to be, music is one thing, politics is another. Now it's different. Now almost every musician has some sort of connection to the politics and what's happening in the world, but they're still catching up on how do we communicate that to an audience so that we welcome them in, especially outside of the borders of our country. And that's something that, we've managed to learn and cultivate and sort of figure out in a really creative way. And so what I think is interesting is for Taiwanese artists is to see and hear, to be able to learn also about, well, how do we express this? Because you can feel that too. There's a sense among the artists here of like, well, we have something really important that we have to tell the world too, but how do you say that in a way that gets people in? And I hope that, one of the sort of main results of us being here is that, the artists here are as inspired by us as we are by them, and that we can contribute something in that way through that inspiration to say, no, it's not just about facts and brutality and telling that you can do this and create, you can explore the ways that you tell your political message and share your identity in a way that will just make people want to be there and want to help.
I hope you enjoyed learning more about Balaklava Blues. Definitely go and check them out. And before we go, I will leave you with another song from their performance on the day, and it's called Let Me Out. Enjoy.